Hello everyone, it's Shannon here from Craft Ghetto. In today's video, I'm going to share with you how to create this beautiful moon and star shaker card with a beautiful blended background and plenty of gold embossing and mirror gold cutouts. First, let's take a look at the waffle flower products I'll be using. This is the Moon and Stars combo set. It comes with the Moon and Stars stamp set as well as the Moon and Stars panel die in the back. I'll also be using the rainbow panel die. I'm going to use the largest die from this set to help create the well for my shaker card, and I'll also use the mini arrow die as well. To start, I have two A2 panels here of 110 pound white cardstock. I cut one panel with the largest die from the Moon and Stars panel die set, and I left the other A2 panel alone. The first thing I'm going to do here is stamp or do my heat embossing on these two panels. I have the Moon and Stars stamp set here. I'm going to remove all the stars from this set. It comes with one large star, a medium star, and three tiny little stars. I'm just going to arrange them here, then pick them up with my acrylic block. I'll apply anti-static powder down to the plain A2 panel, and then I'll take my stars and ink them up in Versamark ink. I will stamp these stars all over this panel so the whole background has these stars. I do make sure to rotate my acrylic block so I don't get the same pattern of stars every time I stamp. I'll just finish up here by stamping this last corner, and then I'll move on to the embossing powder. So I have gold embossing powder here. I'm going to carefully pour it all over this panel to cover up all those stars that I stamped. I work in sections here, doing section by section, being careful not to touch any of the places that have ink, and then I will tap off the excess. I have my heat gun heating up. I like it nice and hot before I bring it to my paper just to reduce the warping, and now that is all heat set and ready for the next embossing. So I have the other A2 panel here, the one that we cut with the Moon and Stars panel die. I have a sentiment from the Moon and Star stamp set picked out and already positioned on my MISTI. I'm inking it up with Versamark ink, applied anti-static powder to the paper, and now I'm going to stamp the sentiment. Now that I stamped it once, I'm going to ink it up one more time and stamp it a second time. I found that this is the best way to get some nice thick embossing, and then I will remove the paper and move on to the embossing powder. Just like before, I'm pouring on the powder and then tapping off the excess. And then again, I have my heat gun nice and hot before I bring it to the paper and heat set that powder. With the embossing done on my two panels, I'm ready to do my final bit of embossing on the inside of my card. So I have an A2 top folding card base inside my MISTI here, and a sentiment as well as all those stars that I used before from the Moon and Stars stamp set. And I'm going to ink them up with Versamark ink for one last time, stamp them, and then move on to the gold embossing powder, pour it on, tap off the excess, and then heat set it with my heat gun. Now we're going to move on to my favorite part of this project, which is the ink blending. I have three colors picked out. They're all distress inks. The first color is Salty Ocean, then we'll move on to Blueprint Sketch, and then finish up with Chipped Sapphire. I really love this part of it because it's very magical to watch it change from this white paper to a beautiful midnight blue sky background, and it's very simple to do because we are going very heavy with the ink here, so you don't have to be all stressed about a very soft, smooth gradation. Just because the amount of ink we're using, it's going to end up being very soft and smooth and seamless. It's very easy to do, and I think when this is all done, it almost looks like velvet. I just love the rich color here. I will warn you, it takes a long time to do just because we are putting so much ink onto the paper, so it probably will take you about I'd say 15 minutes of ink blending just this one panel to get that enough ink on there to make it nice and dark and bold. So I just laid down all three colors, and then I'm blending over a little bit more those transitions just to smooth them out a little bit and make them a little bit more seamless from one shade of blue to the next. I'm just finishing up here with a little bit more of that Blueprint Sketch, and that will complete my panel. I'll hold it up to the camera here so you can see the beautiful blend. And again, this is actually very easy to do because we are going so dark with the colors. I'm now going to do the exact same thing on my second panel. The only tricky thing here is that this has some delicate sides because they're cut thin from the die. So I'm just being careful when I blend here not to crumple or get the paper caught in the blender at all. Just being careful. You could, of course, blend this whole thing first and then die cut, and then stamp. But I I just feel like I waste less ink if I die cut it first and then blend on top of it. Then I'm not blending way more of the panel than I need to. This way I'm only blending what I need to and not wasting as much ink. So I'm just finishing up here with a little bit more of the chipped sapphire, and I do have my other panel nearby so I can kind of look and make sure I'm starting the colors at about the same points. I did basically do it in thirds, so it's pretty easy to replicate again on that second panel. Now I'm moving on to some more die cutting. I have some Mere Gold cardstock that I'm going to use. I have the Strip of Stars, which is from the Moon and Stars panel die. I'm also going to use the moon from that die set as well, and then the mini arrow die. I'm going to arrange them here on the gold cardstock, grab my top plate, then run them through my die cutting machine, and then I'll pop out all the die cuts here. The Strip of Stars is very delicate, so you want to be careful when you're removing it. I just like to pop them out from the top and then pull the Strip of Stars out from the bottom. It comes out nice and neat that way, and that way you don't crumple or fold those stars at all. I'm going to take that Strip of Stars again and arrange them here on the last bit of my gold cardstock and run it through so I will have 2 strips of stars. And then I'm going to pop out the moon and the arrow from the mini arrow die. Now I'm going to die cut my well from some craft foam. This is blue craft foam, and the backside has an adhesive layer which makes it nice and convenient for attaching to my card base. And I have the largest die from the Rainbows panel die set. I'm going to arrange it here on this craft foam and then run it through my Cuttlebug. I really like my Cuttlebug for cutting craft foam. I found that it doesn't smush the craft foam very much and it cuts right on through. I used the blue craft foam for this project because you can kind of see it on the sides. I just think that this is a more discreet way, a more seamless way to hide your craft foam. Before I put my well together, I want to make sure I have my top ready so I can kind of close up all the shaker contents right away. So I have my top panel. I'm going to put some glue on the back of it. I have on the right a piece of acetate that is cut to an A2 panel size. I'm using Tombow Mono multi-liquid adhesive here, and I'm going to stick this A2 panel of acetate right on down to the back side of my panel. I'll just press it all around, make sure I got a good seal. It's definitely important that you have your top panel done before you start filling your shaker well up. That way you can close it up really quickly and not accidentally bump your shaker panel and knock your shaker contents all around. So I'm now going to glue my background panel down onto my A2 card base. Again, I'm using some of that liquid glue, just going to stick it right down here, and then I'll move on to creating my well. So I have my craft foam here. I'm going to remove the backing on just the frame, and then I will line the corners up of the frame up with my card. This will make sure that everything is nice and straight. And don't worry, I will remove that inside square, inside rectangle of craft foam later, as soon as I get the frame stuck down to my card base here. That inside piece of craft foam just also helps to make sure that the frame stays nice and square. So I almost forgot to glue on my gold pieces. I could have put together the shaker card first, but I like to kind of tackle these right away. I've got some more of the Tombow Mono multi-liquid adhesive here, and I'm just adding small amounts to the back side of this strip of stars and being very careful of my glue use here. I don't want too much that when I press down it kind of squirts out, because then you'll see it on the acetate and it'll really look smudgy and blurry, really kind of messes up the look. Now for this bottom strip of stars, I do have to cut 2 strips of stars off. The camera stopped filming, so you missed me cut one, but I'm going to cut the second strip of stars here. They just block the sentiment a little bit, make it hard to read, so I got to remove those. I'm going to save the strip of, or the largest star from that I cut off, put a little glue on it, and I'm going to stick it down right next to the sentiment. This kind of draws your eye back up to the sentiment. And then I will glue the rest of the strip of stars down at the lower right corner of the card front. And I really use a small amount of glue. I can't emphasize that enough. It's just a small amount of glue. It may look like I'm squeezing out a lot. I know it's really hard to see on camera, but I am more moving the glue around with my tip of the glue bottle. That's why I'm lingering over those spots a little bit. Again, it's all just to make sure I don't get a lot of glue, and when I press down it kind of oozes out from underneath the die cut. I'm just going to trim off the excess there, and now I'm ready to glue down my arrow. But to make sure I get the positioning of that arrow right, I want to glue down my moon first. I really like the moon inside or on the card base. It just kind of adds more depth than if I were to glue it directly onto the acetate on the front. This will add a little bit more depth to the card. So now that I kind of know where my moon is going to sit, I'm going to now glue the arrows just so it's kind of pointing towards the moon, and you really get the sense. So it works really well with the sentiment. The sentiment, by the way, is shoot for the moon even if you miss, and on the inside it says you'll land among the stars. I just think it's such a wonderful sentiment. So now I'm opening up my shaker contents. I have some clear sequins and then some really chunky gold glitter. I'm going to add a fair amount of both to the well. I'm going to apologize a little bit ahead of time here. My camera's going to cut out in just a second here. I'm going to add glue to the frame. You're missing me adding glue to the entire frame and then just sticking down the top panel. That's all you missed here. Sorry, my camera ran out of memory. And now I'm all done with the card. I'll hold it up to the camera so you can really get a good look at all the beautiful shaker contents and all the sparkle that we have from not only the sequins and glitter, but also our gold embossing and that mirrored gold cardstock. It's really pretty, and like I said before, this sentiment is just so wonderful, so encouraging, and I think this card would be such a blessing to receive in the mail. I just think it will really lift someone up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you want any more information on the products I use, please visit waffleflower.com, and you can follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook for more creative ideas. Thanks for watching!